Hey, it's your open source advocate, and every week I bring you new open source, self-hosted software that is absolutely amazing. I hope you'll like, subscribe, and tell your friends about this channel so they can come along on the journey with us. Now let's get started. I wanted to do a video this week on a really cool project that I found on the self-hosted subreddit. This guy here has posted up his project that he's been working on for his family for using WireGuard to secure all of their stuff that they do. And then he includes Pi-hole and several other things in the install, which is really great because that gives you a lot of control over your network and over your kids and what they can access, and you can whitelist and blacklist websites and all kinds of things. And it gives a really nice graphical user interface on the server side for setting up your different WireGuard configurations for all of your devices. But this is really a nice, fully baked system, and I always like for you guys to have as many options as you can. And I think this one's really tremendous. So he's got a great amount of documentation here. He talks about what it is. And as you move down, you find kind of the quick start and stuff. So he says Ubuntu 2004, Ubuntu 1804, Debian 10, and then Raspbian. So if you want to run this on Raspberry Pi, you can. So as you move up, you can kind of see what's included here, kind of out of the box, I guess is the best thing to say, which is RAM 1 gigabyte, hard disk 15 gigabytes. So he's kind of giving you an idea of what size system you want to have set up to run this. So I'm going to set this up on DigitalOcean myself, and we'll kind of look at what all we're going to need. So when you start talking about how to do this, it's really just a git command, and then basically run the script that you get whenever you download that. And then you're going to create a configuration file the first time through the command line. You're going to download that to your machine and basically use WireGuard to connect with that configuration file. That configuration file basically makes you the admin of this Mistborn system, and then through the networking of WireGuard you can just go to this address and it will basically log you into that server even though it's out on DigitalOcean, because now you're connected through the WireGuard VPN network, which is really awesome. So this is a really great setup, and it gives you kind of this default admin configuration. If you want to know more about how the network is set up, you can kind of see what he's got going on here with his network diagram. As you move down, you can see some other things that he's got going. Copper Cloud, I think this is a name that somebody suggested instead of Mistborn. I'm not sure why suddenly this title is there instead of Mistborn, but it's a cool name. So either way, it's a really great project, but you can kind of see what we're looking at here. He talks about some of the issues they've had with Netflix in the past, and then everything that he uses it for as far as networking. And then again, we're back to the installation side of it. So you can kind of see a little bit more information about what's going on with the installation, and then you can do a non-interactive installation, environment variables you may need to set up, post-installation, things that you would want or need to do, and places you can look for log information. So we're just going to kind of go back up to the quick start here, and we will use his very simple instructions. So first thing we need to do is create a droplet on DigitalOcean. So I'm going to say create here. I'm going to create a new droplet. So we're just going to click on droplet here. And then I'm going to use Ubuntu, and it's already set to 1804 LTS, which is fine by me for now. Now they always have this set to 40. I just leave it on basic here, and then I just always click the little arrow to move over to the ones that I actually can afford every month. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go with let's try it on the $5 droplet. We'll just see how it goes, because that's got a gig of RAM and 25 gigabytes of SSD. And a terabyte of transfer every month. That should be enough for me for now. Now if you know you're going to be using this thing for Netflix or things like that, you might also look at your transfer rates here. So if you're going to be using this for streaming and things like that, you might want to go bigger, just depending on what you're streaming. If you're trying to stream Plex or something like that, and you're streaming it off of your network, definitely consider some of these ones with higher transfer rates. Might be worth it. Plus it's got the higher RAM amounts as well. So kind of consider that as you go. I'm just going to pick New York. It doesn't really matter which location you pick, as long as it's one that's fairly close to you geographically. That's fine. And then I am going to use my SSH key. And then here I'm going to put in the name that I want for my domain for this VPN. So I'm going to say vpn.opensourceisawesome.com. Let me check my spelling here on that. And we're going to create that droplet. Now while we're waiting for that droplet to get created, I'm going to go over here to my DNS, which is hover. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add an A record here for VPN. So we're going to type in the host name. We're going to set this down to 5 minutes, and then we'll go back and get the IP address once this is done being created. Alright, we've got that copied. We're going to paste it in here and just tell it go. And now we have VPN right here with that IP address. So what we can do while we're waiting on that to update, we can actually test it. So I've got my terminal here. I've tried to make the text quite a bit bigger for you guys, and based on some feedback, I'm not going to make it full length of the screen, because when it gets to the bottom and I'm typing and I forget to clear the screen, if you try to pause, then the controls from YouTube tend to cover up what I've typed. I hear you guys and I do pay attention, so I'm going to try this and see if this works better for you. I hope it does. But we're going to do SSH root at, and then we can use that IP address, but let's just see if we can get to it through the domain name. Yes, we can. Awesome. And this should just log me in. Excellent. Now I'm going to clear that, and we're going to do sudo apt. Now, people always say, why do you do sudo if you're root? You don't have to. You can just do apt update, apt upgrade -y. It's hard for me to even type that. I'm just so used to typing it on my local machines where I have to use sudo that I use sudo all the time. It doesn't matter which way you do it. As long as you update and upgrade the machine before you do any installation, that's kind of the key point, because you don't want to start installing new software and then go, oh man, I should really upgrade this machine, and then suddenly a bunch of things get installed that somehow break the software you just went to all this trouble to install and set up. So it's better to run this first, then do your installation and make sure everything's going to run the way you expect. So when you're doing the upgrade, if you get to this point when you're doing an upgrade, especially on Ubuntu, I usually just take whatever's already highlighted and defaulted, because I know that DigitalOcean has some specific things set up that I probably want to keep. So I just tab and make sure OK is highlighted, then I'll hit enter. And sometimes you get it a second time, and sometimes you even get it a third time. So if you do that, just keep doing tab and then hit enter for OK. Once it's done, we're going to reboot. Again, you don't need sudo, but I use sudo. Alright, we're going to try to SSH back in here, and we are in. Now we're going to go back to our instructions for Mistborn itself. And basically, first thing we need to do is git, and we'll see if we have git installed, but we need this command here, so I'm going to copy this command. I'm going to go back to my terminal. So I'm going to do Control, Shift, and V like Victor, and that's going to paste in the command. And it went out and grabbed the stuff that we need. Great. Now it says to run this, which is correct, because this will put you into the path that you want for the folders. So we're just going to copy again, go back to the terminal, and again, now we'll do Control, Shift, and V like Victor. So right out of the gate, it wants the default admin password. So pick a strong password that you want and that you can remember. I'm going to say yes, he suggests more RAM than I have on this machine, but we'll see how it goes. Alright, and that's the installation. That took about 3 minutes, so I did fast forward through it. Other than the 2 questions right at the beginning of the installation, there was 0 interaction necessary on my part running it this way, which is great. This is a really straightforward install in my opinion, and that made it really simple. So there's a couple of things we still have to do here. If we want to see any kind of logs, if we want to see the logs of Mistborn starting up, we can click here, and he does say it takes about a minute, and then we need to run this to get the admin configurations. So we'll just look at the logs here and see what it looks like. So it kind of shows you like, hey, it's doing some things with all of the stuff that he installed. So he's getting Pi-hole going, he's getting Celery Beat going, he's getting a lot of different things kind of started up here, which is great. And It shouldn't be much longer because I was already talking a little bit while this thing was getting started up, but we'll give it, you know, a solid couple of minutes, and then we'll go and run the initial command to make sure that we get our admin configuration file. So now we're going to use this command right here to grab our admin configuration. Paste in that command, and let's see if we get what we need here. So what you would do is then highlight everything from this line all the way down to the bottom here. You can right click and select copy, or you can do Control Shift and C to copy. And then back here on my main machine, I'm going to create a file called wgadmin.conf, and I'll just use nano. You can use VI, Vim, whatever you want. And then we're going to do Control Shift and V to paste that in. Make sure we have an extra line at the end, and then in nano you do Control O to save, and then hit enter, and then Control X to exit. Now we're going to copy that to /etc/WireGuard. Okay, now if you don't have WireGuard installed yet on your local machine, then you'll need to do that. Let me make this font a little bigger. Sorry about that. So in order to install WireGuard, which I already have on Ubuntu, now I can't say for CentOS or the others, but you do sudo apt install WireGuard-tools, just like that. When you run this, it's going to try to install WireGuard and all of the tools and utilities that go with it. Now I'm on 2004, which the kernel for 2004 should have WireGuard already installed, but what this does is add the wg-quick and things like that as well. And it creates this /etc/WireGuard directory. So this is just the way that I run things today. Things could change in the future, but for now this is the way that I would run it if it was me doing this on 1804, 2004, any of those. So you got to have WireGuard installed. Once you have that, we should now be able to do wg-quick up. Actually, I need to use sudo here, wg-quick up, and I want to use wg-admin. And it comes up. Now, with that up and running, keep clicking on that image. Now with that up and running, we should be able to go to HTTP, let's see what he says on his documentation here. Yeah, home.mistborn, and that will be going over our VPN. We'll just paste it in. And here it is. So right out of the gate, we can see that we've got a pretty nice setup going. Alright, so it's been a little time since I did the initial setup and came up with the initial page, and in the meantime I went ahead and created another profile here that I set up on my main system out in my office so that I can connect with both systems. So in order to access this page, the nice thing about it is you have to be on your WireGuard network, so someone else isn't going to go and log in and just, you know, log into the page that way. Now that said, you do have some control and some access to some different things. So there's quite a bit of stuff here on the panels, and I kind of want to talk about that and go through it. So I'm going to adjust my mic. So as we look at this interface, I just want to first kind of touch on here. You can collapse this sidebar. You'll still have the icons here and available, and it expands as you hover over them. So you don't have to leave it expanded all the time, but you can expand it. And when you look here, you can see that first of all we have Cockpit set up. So basically you click on this, and it's again, as long as you're connected, it's going to try to connect to Cockpit. Now what this is going to use is this is going to use Cockpit for the username, and then it's the password that you created whenever you installed Mistborn. So it asks you that right in the beginning, and then we get into Cockpit. Now if you're not familiar with Cockpit, this is not something that I've covered so far, but here you can see some diagnostics and some information, and it's got quite a bit of features built into it as far as if you've ever seen my Webmin video, Cockpit is kind of the Red Hat version of Webmin. So it's for administrating a server, and you can do quite a few things here with it. It's got a lot of cool features. I'll probably do a separate video on Cockpit later, but know that it is here, and that's how you log into it. Down below that we have firewall information. So first of all is Pi-hole. So when you come to Pi-hole, you'll see just your basic dashboard and some statistics and things like that, which you always kind of get with Pi-hole. If you want to log in, you can click here on the login link, and then it's going to be that same password that you set up. So it's really nice. The author of this software has made it so that it's the same password every time, and it's not something where you have to do something different, but you also do have to be on the network to access these things, which is really great. So you've kind of got two different factors of authentication. One, you have the wgadmin.conf file on your machine that you're connecting with, and two, you have the credentials to log into these things. Now, Pi-hole I've done a video on in the past. They've done quite a bit of stuff on it since then, and there's some things I want to kind of talk about with it. I may do a separate video on it again, but just in and of itself, it blocks spam, it blocks ads, it blocks all kinds of things. It's a tremendous tool to put on your network, and especially on a network like WireGuard, where you're going to be connecting through a VPN, and you want DNS, and you want to set this up to do that. So just kind of first looking at this on local DNS, this is something that they didn't have when I did my video originally on Pi-hole. So you can set up different machines. So like here you can see I gave my office machine a name, and I said what the IP address is when it's connected. What this does is it allows you to route traffic by using the name of the machine, and you don't have to specifically remember the IP, because when you start to get lots of IP addresses, that can become a little bit hard to remember. So being able to just specify the name of the machine is really actually a nice feature. Now there's all kinds of things in Pi-hole that you can use and that you can try to accomplish. Again, I've done videos on this in the past, so it'd be worth it to go back and look at that if you'd like to check it out and see what's going on with it. But this is Pi-hole. So each time you click these, they open up in a separate tab. So Copper Cloud is for IP filtering on outgoing addresses. So if you want to block certain sites, basically this is where you can do that. Or if you want to allow certain sites, you can create a whitelist instead of a blacklist, and you can say yes, this site's allowed. But if you want to block certain sites and things like that, then you can do that in here, and then set it up so that people on this network can't access those sites from this network. And then finally over here on the left you have metrics. So when you load up metrics, it's kind of a similar thing that you see from Pi-hole. So it does give you some different information, and some information that you can see kind of what's going on as far as different sites that have been blocked or different things that have been blocked as it's coming in. Just different information here on a nice dashboard with a lot of charts and graphs. So some pretty nice stuff built into that as well. So the Manage Extra Services is really a cool feature that the author has built into this. So let's say you want Bitwarden and you want to install it yourself. You have that capability, and you can start up basically Bitwarden. If you want to run Jitsi, Jitsi Meet, you can also do that. If you want to run Rocket Chat, you can do that. By the way, if you run Rocket Chat and Jitsi Meet, you've basically got a really great system set up to compete with Slack, with Teams, with any of those things. It's really a great combination. If you're a Home Assistant kind of person, you want to set that up, you can set up some hooks into your Home Assistant. I have a separate Home Assistant box. I've been working with it for a while. I'll probably do a video on it pretty soon. It's really come a long way in the last 5 to 8 months. So I do want to kind of go over it, but it is a little bit of an advanced topic, so I'm kind of waiting a little bit longer on it. But also Nextcloud. So I've done videos on a lot of these things. If you know what sync thing is, this basically allows you to sync data from folder to folder on different machines. So it's really a really great tool for syncing data. Tor. So if you want to do any kind of Tor browsing, you can set that up. And then if you want to do OnlyOffice, I've also talked about OnlyOffice in the past. And then Jellyfin, which Jellyfin's one of my most favorite things, one of my most favorite tools. I love Jellyfin. It's a really great option. That's open source if you don't like the kind of hosted server side of Plex and the closed side of Plex that they've made, and the same way with MB. So just a few things that you can kind of add on right from the user interface here and kind of start up. So the more of these things that you add, the beefier of a server you'll want to have, because each of these things takes up processes and RAM and everything else. But really, really cool. So I think there's really some great potential here when you're looking at this and talking about this is a WireGuard server GUI, but it has all of this extra stuff built in that you can go and add and do. It's not something I want to go into in this video because I don't want it to be that long, but some really great options there. So finally, tools. What's my IP address? So this is going to open up a tab and it's going to take you to an IP address page, and this is the IP address of my server, which is what you would expect. I'm just going to close the page. DNS leak test, which is great, so you can find out, do you have any kind of DNS leak going on? So we'll just do the simple test here. There we go. So no DNS leaks, but it does show that I'm from the United States. So this kind of tells you what this means. And then of course you could run the extended test as well. Port scanner, so you can scan ports online and you can find out, you know, what ports are open, what ports are closed, things like that for different IP addresses. So this autofills your IP address and you can tell it to go ahead and scan those ports. And it tells you down here what all these ports are and what they're generally for. So there you go. You can see that all of these ports are currently, you know, found to be closed when it tries to hit them at this IP address, which is a good thing. That means your firewall is up and running and everything seems to be working correctly. This is the kind of information that's really important. Now you could run the longer scan as well. The quote-unquote quick scan took a little bit of time, but it was pretty quick. So it looks like everything's working with the ad blocking. I have turned off my Firefox install of uBlock Origin, and it still seems to be blocking things, so that's good. So in a nutshell, that is Mistborn. It's extremely straightforward. The install, like you saw with the non-interactive install, is very, very straightforward and very easy to use. This is pretty straightforward. It's very easy to download these profiles and install them, or copy them, I guess you'd say, and get them set up on your machines. Of course, you can scan the QR code with your phone, tablet, other devices that are smart devices that can scan a QR code to get that set up as well. And for each client, it's very easy. You just give it a name. And then if you have a gateway set up that's not the default gateway, you can also give that, you can choose that here, and then you hit create. And now we've got our third device set up. And with that device, I get an IP address, and I can just scan this QR code and then connect to the system. I hope this has been informative for you. I hope it's helped you see how you can interact and connect with Mistborn. I think this is an amazing tool. So if you can, on the author's site there that I've got linked in the description below, he's got a couple of ways that you can support his efforts in creating Mistborn. He's got Patreon and he's got PayPal. You know, if you've got an extra $1, if you've got an extra $5 or whatever, and you can provide that to him, I think that's a great thing to do. I've provided a little bit of support myself for him because I think this is such a great project. I hope you guys will take a look at it. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you'll tell your friends about it. If you've enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it. And I want to say a special thank you to my patrons over at Patreon that are supporting me in this effort. I want to say thank you to all the subscribers out there. You guys are tremendous, and I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you next time.